All right, a little bit of unfortunate breaking news today as Joshua Farmer will apparently enter the transfer portal. We are hearing a specific school or two that is an early favorite to land the talented defensive tackle. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Farmer was going to be a big piece of what the Noles were going to try and do here in 2023 on a very impressive defensive line, both at the top end and depth-wise. Now, if he transfers and he does end up going through with this, the Noles obviously lose a big piece of the puzzle there. In 2022, Farmer had 15 tackles. He had 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Not necessarily stats that just jump off the page at you, but productive during his time in. Obviously, he was playing behind both Cooper and Lovett a ton. And, you know, at the end of the day, you were counting on bigger things from him than what he did in just 2022. From a production standpoint, again, not losing a ton, but a lot was going to be expected of him. Had a really, really good spring. I heard multiple people rave about the spring that he had. And in our depth chart video that we did just a couple of weeks ago, I listed him as my number 2. I had him as my starter next to Fabian Lovett. And thought that he had probably earned that. I think his pass rush in the spring game caused the Jordan Travis interception. And I think that I had spoken with some other people that are really close to the program, really close to him, and I think he was going to end up being your starter. If he wasn't, he's probably your third guy behind Fisk. And so a guy that was going to see a ton of action. Fisk coming off an injury. Fabo hasn't put together a full healthy season yet. Kid was going to play a ton. There's no spinning that. In today's college football, you've got to continuously be on the lookout for this. I do not believe, and based on what I've been told, this did not catch FSU off guard. This did not catch the Battle's End off guard. I believe that they were aware of this. I believe that Farmer's mind ultimately was made up, though, and he decided to go ahead and enter the transfer portal. FSU looks to some other guys to now be in that mix and to be who they will count on this year. Obviously, it looks like your starters are going to be different. If Farmer had earned that starting spot, I was probably one of a few people that had him starting. I will say the guys that do great work over at Noles 247 did not have him listed as their projected starter at that defensive tackle spot next to Fabo. So that is on me. You know, that was my take on how the spring went and some of the conversations that I had. But he was close. You know, they had him just kind of right there on the second string. He certainly was going to get plenty of burn. But, you know, so I had him projected as a starter. Others didn't. I think the Nolcast maybe didn't have him as a starter. I think that Noles 247 I saw didn't have him as a starter. Not sure what other outlets did or didn't have, but a guy that was pretty close there. Where does FSU turn now? What's next? Where is Farmer likely going to end up? I'll talk about all of those things after we give some love to our friends over at Satividal. Satividal is the CBD brand that we've been talking about. They are a sister company of Gramco. They are phenomenal when it comes to CBD for any of your aches, pains, joints, muscles that you need help with. 100% organic. They are a great, great company to not only work with, but I use their roll-on. I use their muscle gel religiously. Anytime I've got a workout, anytime I've got a long run or anything that I do, I use them. You can use it for their pets. Whatever you're in the mood for, whatever you're looking for, Satividal will get you taken care of. Make sure you're supporting them today. Use TJ25 for 25% off of your order. They're at satividal.com. You can also use thegramcode.com for 25% off Delta 8 products as well. Farmer leaves a hole in that defensive line. You're talking about one of the most deep defensive line units in the country, and one that has taken a bit of a hit, but I still think is very, very strong. Fabian Lovett coming back is your anchor, and I do think that you're going to get a ton out of him this year. Hopefully he can make it through all 12-plus games healthy. I think that would be really, really big for the Noles. I think Braden Fisk is another guy that you brought in, the #1 defensive line transfer in the country from Western Michigan. Really, really talented kid. I know that he's been banged up in spring. I expect really big things out of him. Most people had him starting over Farmer. I know that I had Farmer, but most people had him starting this year. And so if they were right and I was wrong, Fisk was going to be your starter anyway. You are losing a depth piece, a really, really good depth piece. I don't mean to minimize it or spin it as any kind of a positive. But I think you lose a depth piece there. Obviously, with Jackson and Tafasi and Briggs, you've got plenty of pieces around there that are really, really talented, and you could still have a really, really good defensive line unit. And I expect Florida State to still have a very good defensive line unit, despite the unfortunate news, despite one of your more talented, one of your better prospects transferring out. This unit that you're going to be rolling with is still going to be very, very tough. I still think they're first or second in the ACC as far as total defensive line package goes. Obviously, with Peyton and Verse there on the edges, you still got a really good product that I think is going to be very formidable, very tough for other opponents. Is it as good as it was yesterday when Farmer was on the roster? No, it wasn't. And I'll even back up by saying that I think if Farmer was to come back before making an announcement of where he's trending, I think Florida State would welcome him back at this moment. I don't want to say he's off the roster at the time of this recording anyway. Obviously don't know exactly, this is pre-recorded, don't know exactly when he's going in, but I do think he would be welcomed back if grass maybe wasn't all the way greener on the other side. Tough to know that because I don't know, again, when this video is coming out. But I do think that, it is something that to kind of recognize and say, like, okay, well, can Florida State get him back? Who are his suitors? What's happening there? We told our Discord about this. You can sign up for Discord membership at patreon.com/DFNS. We let our Discord members know this on Monday at about 4 p.m. We kind of gave them the insight, let them know that this may or may not be coming. Obviously, it has now happened. You can sign up there to get exclusive FSU insight and info at patreon.com. There's a link down in the description to the Discord. You can also join that by being a member of this channel right here. A cup of coffee a month. Give that up. Get you some exclusive FSU insight. I know that this is bad news, but we do share a lot of good news too. We were on top of the Landon Thomas thing. We were on top of the Johnny Wilson news. If you haven't heard that, again, that's in the Discord as well. So make sure that you're signed up as either a member here or on Patreon and get in that Discord and chat with us. Okay, where's he going? I have heard from the beginning that this is probably looking like UGA, Ohio State, and Michigan. Those look like the suitors that may end up being who get the services of the talented defensive tackle, Joshua Farmer. Does he certainly for sure end up at UGA? Not sure. Ohio State, that was a big school growing up that he was a big fan of, I've been told. I think Michigan involved as well. I know that, in this day and age of college football, let's just call a spade, call it what it is. I know that he's had conversations. I know that folks have been reaching out from either those schools or represented those schools, and we'll kind of see where he lands, where he ends up. For those asking this question, I believe that UGA is somewhat motivated to go head-to-head with Florida State and hurt them in any way they can due to the Landon Thomas decommitment, flip, recruitment. I have been told that on a couple of occasions by people that I believe are very, very close to both programs, and I think that there's a little bit of a bitter taste in UGA's mouth. Not necessarily the team you want to piss off, but hey, if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so let's see what happens there. Last year, I think Miami and Florida had a pretty interesting rivalry on the trail, some head-to-head battles, some things that went down to kind of just piss the other one off. Again, not sure that you want UGA to be that team for Florida State this year, but if it is, it is. I think this is a big loss for the Noles. There's no way to spin it. I think it's just as big as the DMAC loss, maybe a little bit more, because I think Farmer was going to be a starter for you, probably get the same number of reps that DMAC was looking at in that 2 deep on the defensive line. You've got to be able to figure out a way to come back from this. You've got to be able to figure out a way to rise above this. Is Florida State able to pick up somebody in the portal? What ends up happening? Does Briggs play a little bit more inside? Do they go after somebody else at defensive end in the portal? What ends up happening there? College football is wild right now. We're along for this wild ride. We're going to tell you guys what happens. We're going to try and get you that info early if we can. Become a member of the channel or our Patreon to get that Discord access so that you guys can find out about this Florida State news before it happens. Our outlets that cover Florida State do a fantastic job. There are some things that they can and can't report on. So we try to provide a little bit different lane, a little bit different angle. Again, go sign up today if that matters to you. If not, make sure you're subscribed here on the channel. We do pre-records like this often for news. We try to get you the news as soon as it happens. So make sure you're subscribed with those notifications on. We appreciate all of you guys' support. Hey, some good news. Florida State's looking to get out of this conference, out of the ACC. If you want to know how them and Clemson are trying to get that accomplished, you can do me a favor and click right here.